Hello, and welcome to this episode of Goddess Embodied series. My name is tainomadica. I'm so grateful to be here with you all today, and I'm so deeply thrilled and honored to share this space today with my beautiful goddess sister, Ishaani Geetam. And I just want to welcome you and thank you for being here today and sharing your beautiful presence and the sweet medicine of just being yourself as we go into our conversation of the Goddess Embodied for today. Welcome, Ishaani.
Thank you so much, Taida. I was trying to absorb the deliciousness of the words, when we say Goddess Embodied, it has so much of richness and so much of presence, the sense of beauty, the luxury, and the power that transmutes. So the words, as you were speaking, were invoking that. So I was kind of, if you heard me, I was doing, it's the deliciousness of absorbing it all. So thank you for welcoming me into this beautiful space. And I am so honored and happy and just feeling easy to be in your presence, especially looking at your altar and you on the screen. It just adds to the deliciousness. So it's a beautiful presence. Beautiful, beautiful space, visually on audio and all of it. So I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, I can really feel that. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful.
Wow.
Well, I think to maybe start, it might be interesting to share how I was just so lucky to meet together with you at somewhat of a beginning of stepping out more on my journey of Goddess Embodied and just my spirituality and talking about it more and connecting with people, with women specifically in sacred spaces for women. So when I first met you, it was here in Maryland. I think it was in Maryland, a Blueberry Farm.
Yes.
Yes, and we had a beautiful live temple for the spring solstice.
Yes. March 24th. I forget the year, but it was March 24th
I
because
think it was 2017.
yes, and I forgot to bring my drum close to the screen where I am right now, because that was the birth of my spiritual name Ishaani. That was the making of my shamanic drum in that whole day workshop with the sister circle. It was the anointing of my name, and it was also opening myself up to a sacred space like that. Even the term anointing, coming from my origins or cultural origins, I was not familiar with that word until I went into that sister circle. So the Ishaani is my spiritual name. So my legal name from birth is Geetam. They both are beautiful. I use them both. So Ishaani was born on that day in the formal way into the physical world. And I think you were part of that. That's where we met. And then since then on many different forums, online, in person, deepening our space of healing. So yes, it just feels so rich and dense in a beautiful way of how much our personal journeys have deepened and how much our presence into the world, bringing others and holding sacred space for others through whatever pathway you have adopted and I have adopted, have deepened so much. It's almost like I have to struggle to think when was that in a very beautiful way, because so much has been packed since then and so much has deepened since then, and that deepening and pact also has a way of purging a lot, like what did not need to stay with us anymore. So it's dense, packed dense with what needs to remain with us, and purging what needed to leave from the density we carried at different points. At least that's true for me, and I can witness yours, in similar ways. So it's beautiful in many different ways to say, like the density has a different dimension.
Absolutely. And I do remember this ceremony so vividly of your naming when you said this name, Ishaani, came to you. And it's just such an inspirational, really, really uplifting, beautiful moment. And is there anything that you want to speak into as to how this name came to you, and how was this name gifted to you specifically, that you just knew this is your this is the name that you are embodying as your new name, spiritual name?
Yes, yeah, sure. I would love that. So I'll have to go into a little backstory for that. So I think it was maybe 2016, and my personal practice has accelerated a lot since the end of 2015, but my personal spiritual path has been lifelong. So it was not like one magical moment where I started this. So unfortunately, I don't have a very drastic story to tell that way. So it was a lifelong, like I used to be this 22-year-old and 23-year-old living in hostels, living in shared accommodations, and I'll have an altar and I'll pray. And I used to be made fun of in a nice way by my close friends, where is this oldie coming from? Because they just used to feel like, like, who is she? Why does she do that? And why does she go to temples and stuff like that? So, but anyway, so there was an acceleration of that more spiritual, not religious, in a way, very deep connecting with the soul. That happened since maybe around 2013, but it was very, very prominent, I know, around 2015 end. So 16 was this year of, when you are getting into a level of ascension, awakening, you get very fast and furious downloads, because those guides come in and are leading you at that level of your where you need to ascend into. And then there are different stages of ascension. Typically it's considered six stages. So whatever stage I was in at that point, the downloads were so rapid, so frequent, so profound, that it led me to adopt this path from away from my professional background up until at that point, in a more structured management role, government, even if it was in development and all. So I started studying more. I started seeking spiritual community. I started seeking going into these circles where people talked about spirit and connection and visions and astral travel. And so at least it could connect to my reality, that something just didn't go wrong with my brain, like I really am seeing it, or I'm really sensing is real, because then other people have been in on this path, and people come at it from different pathways. I also met many spiritual healers who either inherited in their blood because they are part of ancestral runs, healing runs in their bloodline. Some come because they have studied some subjects in that fascinate them, and then they decide to adopt it, right? Mine has been a little the other way, that there are embodied experiences all the way, and then I had to investigate that to put it in the context of what is it showing to me. And first of all, I mean, in 2016, it was a little more about, is it real? Like, is it real? Like, am I sensing it? There were those elements as well. So, So that was throughout 2016. I have had visions and connections, which then were later corroborated by accomplished healers that I visited, as my own soul showing me my other lifetimes, because I was not able to piece it together, what I was seeing, what I was downloading. So this name, particularly, I remember coming in the early part of the year, as so I was initiated into goddess forms, goddess energies through my personal spiritual journey. I do not inherit that as a faith, a legacy from my mom, but I get my faith from my mother. But she still has very deep connections with masculine form of divinity in her faith from Vedic, right? So I was okay with that when, when it was a little more on the periphery for me. It was not a personal experimentation, but my personal spiritual journey connected me to these goddess forms. And so Isis, goddess Isis, that she exists, that she is a goddess, was also revealed to me through a vision I had in a sacred circle in 2016. And I actually initially thought she was Cleopatra, because I could see her features in a daylight for 2 hours. And I didn't know who she is to me, because I was not initiated. Like, I didn't have a physical reality familiarity with who she is in the physical world. So I thought, like, why would I must have watched the movie where Cleopatra looks like that. So anyway, later I could, because the visions came more frequently and the energy started speaking to me in my dreams and my conscious aware moments, and I connected then by reading and on Facebook and through Oracle. Alana Fairchild's actually Oracle card deck. I was in India, I remember, and I had this epiphany. I have to buy this Oracle deck, and so I ordered it even when I was physically not in US, and I land here back and I opened the deck. Out of 44 decks, there is one card where the visual representation of goddess Isis is exactly what I saw like 8 months before, when I didn't know who she was, in a sacred circle here in Virginia with someone who ran that circle. So, things kind of came in, it doesn't give me goosebumps anymore, but it did at that point, because when you piece all those beautiful stories together, you go like, how is this even possible? Right? So goddess Isis spoke very prominently to me. Kuan Yin came to me, and Durga, who is again from the tradition that I come from, though I had no affinity to her as a practicing form of divinity all these years until 2016. So as I started putting them on my altar and meditate, I started hearing these whispers and sounds. I used to see lights earlier. And so that came like, you have a name, you have an identity before all these identities were formed. And so I started listening, and it came in all one day, like it was all profound. The story seems like it happened for a long time, but this was all one day. You have a name. And so first I heard Isin. Then I heard I can't remember what was the other word I heard, but by the time I could come back open my eyes, I heard Ishaani. So I'm like, okay, what is that? What is that? So it was not clear right then. And I said, okay, I'm going to adopt this name. It came in my meditation. And then it quickly, kind of over the next few days, it unfolded that Ishaani was a name I had on the list before my daughter was born in 2009. Because in India, you cannot, where she was born, you cannot do a sex determination of the baby. It is not legally allowed. So I didn't know I was carrying a boy or a girl. So on my list, I'm like, if I have a daughter, that was one of the topmost names. I had a daughter, but the name didn't get an approval from my now ex-husband and my mom, because they just chose a different name. And it's a beautiful name she has, but so all this unfolded in like, oh, see, I had that name. And so once I started looking that name up, it is actually also one name of Goddess Durga. But I didn't hear all that. This came after I heard the name over the next, weeks or so. So when I was signed up for this sacred circle, which you were part of, and it was run by, I remember her, she was a lovely, lovely sister goddess, Alexandra Palas. And so when I said, this happens, she suggested we want to do a ceremony for you to anoint you with that name. And I jumped for it because because my heart was open, I was having all this download. And so when she opened up her space and she knew what she was doing, I'm like, sure. So that's the birth of Ishaani. And that's where I actually attended that workshop or sacred circle to make my first shaman. And that's my only shamanic drum, by the way. So I wrote the name there because they ask you whatever is coming, you can write. That was the day it was all born. So that was the backstory of how it led to. So I use that in my sacred work and my writing and even publicly, but just so not to confuse the other world that I stride in about jobs or the professional legal identity. So I use my birth name Geetam. That means
Sure.
Geetam means song. It's a Sanskrit word. And
Mm.
Ishaani is basically the Kwanin, Isis, Kwanin, and Kali. Actually, Durga then transformed into, I connect more and work with the energy of Kali now, goddess Kali. So, and if I look at it, I think that's how it was combined to be Ishaani. It contains all their three names. So mostly in my work, I would say Ishaani on the other team, like not me in my physical form, but my divine team is an Ishaani.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah.
gorgeous story. I think the journey of our soul and our path unraveling and just kind of opening before us as we step into the unknown and without fully or even understanding a little bit of what is happening or what is to come, often results in such beautiful and inspirational new manifested levels of just being more in our soul and comfortable in our soul place as we venture into this kind of space in this lifetime, in our three-dimensional life. So I love that story of how your name shared itself with you when you were so deeply open to receiving and journeying to meet yourself in this beautiful place of the divine self. I always feel like there's just so much abundance coming from your energy, and your name felt like a song to me. Both Ishaani and now knowing Geetam means song. Thank you for that beautiful reminder also. But it just makes me feel all of your beautiful offerings that I'm seeing online, and just this energy of love that you're sharing through Amaroo Dreamers, that I would love to talk about that a little bit. It just feels like so much Saraswati energy to me, like abundance and just showing up in the specter of all of these gorgeous color frequencies that live within. And so just before I would love to see what you want to talk about next, but I love that you mentioned this sort of legal aspect of the name and just that whole profile sort of cataloging in a sense, because I see you posting so many beautiful spirituality related posts on LinkedIn, which is, traditionally this like job resume, I do this. And so I think it's such a refreshing and important outreach to reclaim yet another platform that's traditionally telling us to tuck away that which we are in our fullness of expression, including spirituality, from the fact that oh, I like hiking, I'm going to post here, and how is that relevant to my job? Well, it's very relevant because you're working with a whole person, not just one part of a person. And so I love seeing those posts that you share on LinkedIn. I think it's such a tremendously refreshing and very relevant and timely content that we need for weaving these stories of we are more than this three-dimensional person.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I really love that you noticed that. And you know that I use the word a resonance a lot, that when we are seeking that or we are being that, then we see more of that around us. So the fact that you notice that and you admire that, it also talks about your energy, how you wish or you already are presencing yourself in the world, bringing all of you. So it's, you know, that was there is also a backstory. Everything has a backstory because I've been evolving very rapidly in this last 5 years in my professional space, and the profession has basically blurred the line with the personal in this, and that is what was wanting to happen in this last few years in my life. And I see that now that is wanting to happen in everyone's life. So it's much more rapid now. So first, when I went through this, you know, I started my master's leading up to a PhD in metaphysical science, then all these certifications in shamanism and NLP, CBT, Enneagram. I did a whole lot of studying because I come from a Gemini rising, you know, so it's an essential quintessential essence of me to seek knowledge when something I am feeling. I'm also a Leo sign, so when I feel I need to know it, I need to know it. So that need to know has become more grounded now because I believe and sense more than just needing the knowledge around it. But when I did that, so what happened is I came with this kind of posting in 2018, for example, and the world was not ready. The universe of LinkedIn was not ready. So I was almost disheartened and I deleted my profile after a while. Like the whole profile of more than 1,000 connections I have had up until then, which was a different kind of professional experience I have had. So personally, Taida, for me, I have been a very, how do I say that without sounding bragging? I've been fearless in a way that I have been unconventional, not really needing to follow just because it's the norm, right? Like I married at an age when it felt right. I am the one who, you know, when my girlfriends used to go shopping for dresses or clothes, I was preparing to buy a house because I needed to take care of mom. So I had let what was true to me always through my life. So the whole external need of confirming to something was not my, you know, like for some people, that's the greatest pressure they deal with. For me, it was not just who I am as a person. I think for me, knowing what is truly important to me is the, like at a soul level, at a heart level, at a body level, all of it has been so much my journey that when that happens, I don't feel like I have to hide or anything. So I went on LinkedIn, I started doing this posting and nobody would come forward. I felt alone. I'm like, so who cares about LinkedIn? I'm going to delete my profile. I don't care about LinkedIn anymore, right?
Totally.
So I am going to go with my world where I need to. So I then moved to Facebook and started doing more of these on Facebook. But I also had a lot of checkered you know, like in terms of I needed a lot to travel overseas and US because of my family needing. And that was part of my repair too. I just don't want to bring those details here because then I'll go on a different tangent. I'm staying to responding to this LinkedIn right now. So because of this overseas travel and all that, so I was creating Amaroo Dreamers. It started first with a YouTube channel called Rapture of Love, where I was just talking like this session, very, very, you know, what was capturing my heart, what was flowing, no script, nothing, literally sitting on the dining table and what was trying to channel from me. So I learned how to make a video and how to post it and all that. So it was born there.
I love
So I
that.
Yeah, so I just concentrated on that then with my travel, with my repairing things happening at all levels with my family, and not travel as in a leisure, it was some of it was voluntary, some of it was involuntary, so a lot of pressure points, I would say. And then in 2019, 18, I was able to sell off a family, like a property which I share with my family, my birth family, and move them, relocate them. So this whole exercise I was able to do in 45 days in overseas, which is kind of an unheard thing, like it was a grace flowing through it. Everybody said we would have taken 8 months. How did you even do this? So that kind of opened this feminine energies that I was working with, but it kind of brought me back into now I want to get back working into the international development sector, where I come from, right? Because I was good in responding to emergencies. Those are part of my job profiles that I have done. So when I got back into that mode, I'm like, okay, I'm now going to crawl back into LinkedIn, open a new profile, okay, because I was needing to do that. So I did that, from it restarted from there. But now I was at a different spiral of embodiment. I was no longer able to give up on what has already become part of me, my daily meditation, my goddess energy, my altar, my oracle card practice. I needed an outlet. And I was doing it on Facebook, but then I realized that most of the people I know who actually are invested in a space exist on LinkedIn with me, people who knew. So though I was working parallelly for a job and I awaited the process of, clearance and all that at the level of federal government, I actually had a post there saying I actually claim this world where vulnerability is a strength. And I no longer, I'm not towing two different lines, I am not accepting a world where vulnerability is, I see, I didn't even pronounce the word correct. Vulnerability is considered threat. Like typically you'll say if you're vulnerable, you are under the threat of being, influenced by other people. That's a very traditional, the sector that I work in government and contracting. So I'm like, why so? When I am vulnerable, I started speaking this out through my post. I'm like, when I'm vulnerable, what that means is I know every part of me, my unconscious, my conscious, the way I conduct myself, the way I can carry a faith without giving into what is changing around me. I am so whole that nothing can influence me away from my power. That's vulnerability. How can such a person be under any kind of threat? No. So I needed to say to the world so that others not only see my power, but see themselves too. That if you are vulnerable, you are so strong that nothing external can influence you, because now you have met your vulnerable part, the parts that you felt like you need to hide away, right? So why me being spiritual? Why me being in touch with my soul is my weakness? It is not. So I'm going to show up as it is. If you like it, fine. But I also brought my world, like the people who were in the other world, people who are still not very comfortable connecting with me publicly when I say those language. But they would send me message to say it's so rare and refreshing to see this level of honesty. And what I accept is that, see, that's their reality too. They had, where they stand in life is to send me a message on LinkedIn, to admire that because they too value that within them. But for whatever reason, their world does not let them comment. Most will not, but there will be some who will come even from that world and comment and share on the walls because they're trying to break free from what's holding them to. So that had been a conscious journey of bringing it to LinkedIn because I no longer wanted to separate my two worlds. So as I speak to you today, I actually am getting back into the full-time job role, because the reclaiming of the power freed up those energies within me, along with some other journeys I have had. But when I
Oh,
talked
great.
job, when I talked for the job, I did say this is how I am seen in the public. This is how what I want to carry. I hope you're okay with that. So they're okay with it, wherever I'm joining full time. And we will talk at later point of time where if I need a representation, public face representation for them, and how my coaching either may interfere or it may integrate, or whatever. But the point is, it is no longer a side thing. It is no longer a part of me which is not equal. And
Yeah, yeah.
and what you said, the other points are what you will see most people, at least on my circle, the ones I connected with, we are all of us when we show up at work. Yes, it is needed a decisiveness, a wisdom, and a practical world wisdom, I would say, that you don't use all your skills all the time, right? Right now, you are in a softening, receiving and giving love space while you're doing this interview with me or session with me. Then there is a time when you're driving the car where you exactly know that I have to go to this place and it is going to take me 30 minutes. And so you're just not going to go off for 2 hours, drive some other place. It's a skill you're using because you're reaching from destination A to B. So I'm not afraid to use that, and I'm not afraid to use this. And the more we allow both and both in our daily life, I think we become uh, first more weightless, when I say, because these parts that are tied to can I do this? Or who's going to think what? Am I going to look like this? We are freeing up those energies, those weights we don't carry anymore. So there's so much more for me to be, like as I was saying, I was attending to some personal things this morning, and now when I show up for you, I'm fully here. And like tomorrow morning, Friday, Monday morning, when I join this new workplace, I'm gonna be fully there. So it's been a journey. Thank you so much. It's been a journey, and it doesn't come easily. And why I say this is because you asked this. It's such an important thing you asked, and I want everyone to be very deeply self-loving, non-judgmental, and extremely compassionate to themselves, as when people are going through this journey of reclaiming themselves in all ways, because it is not, and that also you'll find on my post all the time, it is not a lack of intellectual knowing that keeps us away from it. It is not just because you never knew this before until Ishaani just spoke on this session. You know it as much as I know, or even before you heard it. Why we find it difficult is why we have all these soul memories, all these soul wounds, all these traumas we have carried through different lifetimes and in the collective through our own bloodlines for whatever deep woundings they have had. It's I'm watching a show about war times. I know in my own family, my father's ancestors had to change profession 14 generations before him. When I'm talking not in this modern culture, they went from becoming royal priests to warriors. They were forced to. So all these wounds of going from one thing into another, diluting your identity, the ability to create a new identity and thriving in it, and believing that people will not disown me when I create my new identity. It is not a lack of intellectual not knowing why we were stuck. It is the ability to sit through the wounds, recognize them, work through them. It needs immense level of courage. It needs immense level of faith that you're being guided in the right direction. And it needs immense level of self-love, that when you cannot, it is not your time. So sit through it. When you can, you will take the next step, because no soul who's owning its power will stop at anything less than fully showing up. And that's why I do the work I do through Amaroo Dreamers, working with shadows, working with traumas, and always, always, always with the strictest level of love surrounded. And you cannot do this work without love. And that's the reason why love always is what you sense when I'm talking, is that I've been through this journey in and out, walking every bit, falling every bit, crawling every bit and rising up again and not giving up until I know there is something that needs to be still free. And it's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey. I really witness you. Thank you so much for sharing with so much depth and detail and vulnerability. I think, that's also a huge pillar on my journey, reclaiming that sovereignty and reclaiming just how multifaceted of a soul each of us is, and really stepping into a life where we are embodying in our three-dimensional life the fact that we are multidimensional beings, and sharing these different experiences and really awakening this remembrance of all of the different aspects of ourself, including previous lives, including future moments, and using these technologies that are both ancient and future technologies to simply effortlessly walk through life and really be able to both heal ourselves and, as you said, reinvent ourselves. And it's just so beautiful. And thank you for sharing, the piece about people stepping into their life deeper by having established this communication through private messages versus publicly, because I think both you and I remember being on that side also, and reaching and creating a bridge with ourselves by having these beautiful beings, these beautiful souls in our life that are encouraging us on without, saying it or just expressing themselves. And as you said, it's this frequency connection where, we are actually participating even as what is seemingly a passive recipient of information. It is actually activating us on deeper levels than, what we can say. So thank you for speaking into that, and for talking more about Amaroo Dreamers. And I know in our recent conversation, we talked a little bit about just the transformative power of also group energy, and how, well, I know for myself, and I believe you had mentioned this is also true for you, spending a lot of time, not in solitude only, but just spending a lot of time in sacred space, awakening, creating sacred space, creating ceremony, creating ritual, to bring myself closer into what is called an empty presence, to be able to truly tap into and receive these deeper remembrances, these deeper places of myself that are asking to be loved, that are asking to be presenced and witnessed and integrated and brought along for the journey of life, and just experiencing a lot of time alone, whether, in nature or just creating sacred rituals and ceremonies, and then coming to a point where there's an excitement, there's an enthusiasm, there's this like effortless dance, this joy to connect with other people and to exchange, to link energies, to exchange experiences, but also to expand through having this connection in what I think you called group energy, just in one of our recent conversations. And I just love that, because that's what Goddess Embodied is about. It's speaking with a goddess as yourself, speaking about different goddess energies that are manifesting themselves in your life, and how that is enriching the experience of having quality time on a spiritual journey with other people also. So I love that concept of group energy from the spiritual viewpoint of this nested opportunity for, something we didn't even expect could happen, like our friendship for this many years, and this collaboration, and everything you're doing through Amaroo Dreamers.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So this is beautiful. Yes, I do remember we talked about I remember the essence of what we talk because I usually talk so intuitively. I can't remember exactly what context, but the essence of group energy, I remember having this recent conversation. So, see, Taira, how I see this is there is so much of perfection in the divine, in the cosmic or the universal, however you call it, a person of faith or not a person of faith, but there is a bigger universal intelligence. And since you and I
Oh, wait, you just froze for a second there.
us when we allowed to ignore. But whatever is the reason of the start of that journey, what happens is when we are journeying very deeply, we would go into spaces to hear, listen to ourselves, which needs solitude. If you are brave enough to know that, which you and I have been, we will allow ourselves that. Most people struggle at that level to want to break away from a regular three-dimensional life to allow that solitude because it's scary. We haven't grown up like that. So, once you go into that journey, you connect with these parts of you that you haven't known. But then knowing those parts also happens through others. This is what the depth of shadow work is, whether you'll be triggered by some, whether you will witness the parts that you haven't owned in you, but you see them in others. That's how you're triggered. So that there is also an element of others around you, but most of the work at that stage of your awakening happens in solitude. And I curve that in my life on a daily basis, multiple times. And I'm very fierce about it. I'm as fiercely protective about it as I protect my daughter physically, like as I'll be around her. So it is protecting the daughter within me or the little girl within me, or the even the grown-up woman
I
within me.
love that.
Yeah, even as a goddess, when we talk about goddess of different, ancient origins, we know the beauty they create, the time they take to adorn themselves, the time they go to worship. So that element of creating space is something you need to carry even when you are in a group energy. But at some point on your journey, the solitude is like taking care of a sapling, that you would cover it, you will have a plastic sheet over it, or you will not let snow on it because you need to care until it becomes strong enough into some form of tree which can be left open to the elements. It won't be damaged by either the sun or excessive rain or snow, but you sapling will. So the group energy, and as long as you know how to listen to your body, what is your body intelligence telling you, how is your body feeling around it, how is your energy feeling around it, you will sense that how much of you is ready now, are ready now to be part of a group energy. And then what groups are okay with you because there is an energetic resonance, and what groups may just deplete you more, right? So there needs to be that discernment as well. Now, linking back to your other question that you asked about LinkedIn, I felt very guided. Not give up on
I'm glad
LinkedIn.
I brought that up. Yeah, it's a whole avalanche of symbolic representation. Please,
Yes,
please,
because
please.
it was a very intentional presence on LinkedIn. There are moments where I wanted to go away, even after this resurgence, because at times you feel like, am I really in an energetic resonance on LinkedIn, or is it a ego? Is it a self-validating exercise I'm doing that I need to be now accepted? So I do that reflection very often. So when I feel like I am disheartened if I don't get follows or likes on a post, I will sit with it. until that feeling and that self-validation need goes away. So what I offer and post there is purely for the collective because I'm guided to, because the density is present there. So there are people who need to find those lights, and some of us are guided to be there because I can be all nice and spiritual in a spiritual retreat where only spiritually aligned people come. What happens to me when I go to the vegetable market or the fish market or the local market? Do I lose all my spiritual purity? Do I lose all my light that I think I carry because I cannot relate to anyone? Then I'm still in a place of ego. Then I'm still in a place of separateness. So my endeavor is always to strengthen my own spirituality, that when I go to a, and I don't mean to be any disrespectful to any fish market or vegetable market, I'm just saying like where people do not come for a spiritual, upgrade or whatever. But my point is, if that's when I go to such communities or space and I can hold my own vessel as a spiritual being, then I'm transmuting. Then instead of I getting drawn down by others' vibrations, I'm able to lift others to my vibration. That's the whole alchemy we talk about. And the real test of that happens when you are ready, and that's how we know that we are ready, only when you will be courageous enough to expose yourself uh, in groups which you will feel that they're not traditionally my groups. Nobody talks about it because when everybody talks the same language, what are you transmuting? Where is your light shining? It's like, my biggest prayer and revelation as a healer has been, you have prayed to be the lighthouse, and here is a divine stamp that you are a lighthouse. So then what do you seek? I sit with that question. And then I have surrendered and strengthened and committed myself to, yes, if it means I need to exist on a lone seashore so that my light can shine and show the way for ships to come, that is the path I have chosen. So I cannot cry that I'm alone. I am strengthening that more ships will come because there is a purpose I have and find their light. And the day when my role changes, that I now need to become a city light, so that when I shine on the skyscraper, the whole city is lighting, but I'm still in a part of the city. My divine will lead me there, right? So LinkedIn has a lot of intentionality when I go. So it's just not a platform for me. Like it's not a self-serving. It's like, how do I hold my own frequency of light? And what I say, whether it's written or video, creates that shift in someone, even if that journey is 6 months or a year for them. And so, and some people fall away, by the way. So the acceptance of this is because they're not for you, or you are not for them, or they're not there. Some people are there and then they fall away. So you realize like maybe they're too triggered. I have been triggered by people whose lights are like, when I was in predominantly masculine energy, then I would be triggered by feminine energy because this is my journey to own my feminine energy. And now that I have balance, when I was not, after I owned my goddess energy, there was a whole disdain for this masculine energy. Oh yeah, somebody's so focused on the deliverable, on this and that, and that'll trigger me. And I go like, but that was me like 10 years ago. Why am I triggered by my own self, right? Because I needed to wait and had the softness and the opening of the heart. And then comes the balance. You carry the masculine and the feminine, and you are not threatened by either of the energy because you can hold both. And so now I'm happy to be anywhere, and no one triggers me. Now my work is to maintain it and refine it and strengthen it. So when you talked about group energy, I think that's how you know your own preparedness to be in group energy. And once you are there, it's a very strong suggestion to use discernment at all point of time, because only you have the permission and the right to keep your energy exclusively sacred for you and carry no one's negativity on you. So if the group energy is bringing you down, that means either you know that you can influence the group energy to shift to a higher level, or it is time for you to leave and serve as part of some other group energy,
Yeah.
and being easy on yourself for that, and not
Mm.
like having these talks that, oh, am I a quitter, oh, am I never going to give up. So some of these very traditional coaching models and all don't work for me, like never give up. No, give up when it feels wrong, just give up and go away.
Right.
Because but you should know what not to give up. I mean, that discernment is very internal. What am I not giving up? Because if we always believe in this masculine energy form of coaching, like the traditional coaching says never give up, and you only post pictures of non-quitters and how people, what happens if you are in part of dysfunctional family patterns, dysfunctional relationship patterns, dysfunctional self-sabotaging patterns? Then you haven't learned how to walk away. So no, learning to walk away is also part of the journey, right?
Absolutely.
That's why the inner journey, which you did, you said the strengthening in the solitude, you have learned all that. So only when you go out to the group energy, you experiment now. Now, whatever you have learned, like what feels right, when can I walk away, when can I deepen, and when can I move between the two? So it's a living experiment. It's curious,
Yeah.
it's open, and it's joyful.
Yeah, I love what you said about finding balance between your masculine and your feminine energies, and balance, and really just sitting with both and having the introspection, the patience, the love, the compassion for the self, to really come into union with both of these, and having that balance truly, symbolize the alchemy. It's an effortless thing. So it's this really just very important moment of effortless embodiment and alchemy, as we think of it in this modern day and age, where quite a lot of us, if not, the majority, still have what are called regular jobs, in our three-dimensional life, and juggling and balancing that, and really stepping more fully into sharing the spiritual journey. So I really think there's so many gems and so many powerful pieces that you spoke into today that will inspire a lot of people and meet them and support them on their path where they currently are, as the episode comes to meet them and greet them and love and support them and hold them in the process. And so I would love to share also how people can follow you and get in touch with you, so that the conversation can, continue beyond this Goddess Embodied episode. And of course, anything else that you want to share in addition to how people can reach you and connect with you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so the practice, I basically focus on, that's how it was probably coming out very intuitively in all my talks. I do focus on the inner child or trauma informed. I don't do only focused trauma work, but trauma informed healing of family patterns and the inner child wound. I focus on balancing inner feminine and inner masculine energy. And I do energetic works, like it's all remote and distance. All my clients over the years have been remote, even before the pandemic. So energetic, how when we know the energies within our chakras, within our system are imbalanced, I can tap into, how the person's external behavior would be and what is holding back. So those, and this is why I say it's modern coaching, because the principles of coaching, with the person, but using a lot of ancient healing, then a lot of cord cutting, a lot of soul retrieval, what we typically would call fragmentation and disassociation in psychological terms. But very powerful when you could bring in the shamanism into it in terms of retrieving soul parts lost in either family patterns. And I personally have worked with those in my own life to be able to come to light, And so it is not to create fear, more fear about if this is I'm carrying this pattern, that means I'm carrying a burden. Not essentially. There is love, there is also undesirable weight you're carrying. So how not to get into space of fear, but have very strong boundaries and discernments to take away what is not functional. So I work in weekly packages that run into several weeks, 16 weeks to 24 weeks, with clients in one-to-one healing setup, because that's where it is the most powerful for people, because everyone's energetic imprint is so unique. But I am getting a little more open to do very smaller groups so that people are still can be vulnerable, feel safe, but can find it also the community. We talked about group energy, but also economically viable for them, because not everyone can show up only for individual sessions. In a very transformative epiphany within me, I'm also kind of rehauling my own pricing the way I used to work, to bring down a lot of my prices to very affordable limits for people both overseas and in the US. So this is my commitment to kind of take away the split between matter and spirit, between material and spirituality. So if a person who, wherever they stand in their income level, can walk into a massage center or see a psychotherapist, or can have an extremely delicious meal or go for a family vacation at an affordable rate, that's where my energy come coaching healing will come, and not at an exorbitant that keeps me at a very elitist level, because spirituality is not elitist. It is not exclusive. It is day to day. Like, I can go, if my back is hurting, I can't stand straight for 2 days, and somebody says, go get a massage, I'm able to go and afford it. That's where my coaching session was. So it's kind of a I started with that, but then the way I have in the last couple of years that I have proceeded was not probably had stopped resonating to me myself. So I had to reevaluate this to turn it on its head. And my going back to full-time work is to use my other skill set, as well as to bring in that balance between, so that the offerings at Amaroo Dreamers are channeling where it needs and how it is needed, minus my Ishaani Geetam need to be part of that, either for sustenance or for ego validation or for anything. So I'm truly operating as a vessel, so that Amaroo Dreamers is the offering from the divine to the collective, from the universe to the collective, and I am the space holder, the primary one for now. The way I use Amaroo Dreamers is it's in LinkedIn is my primary. I use email ID to reach me. That information is on LinkedIn. I do not have site, and I hope in the next 6 months I will have a website, but my focus is more to get the work done, and I feel the strongest reference has come from my presencing, where people have seen me set in my presence, and then they have worked with me and referred someone else because they felt the power of working with my session. So Amaroo Dreamers is set up, even the name Amaroo Dreamers is paradise on earth, and dreamers who dare to do that, and it starts with you, is my approach. So when you heal yourself, when you meet all parts of you, you become so loving, powerfully, fiercely loving and fearless, that the fluctuations around you do not change you for the wrong reasons, right? And so then you can accept others going through their journey in all their hues without being triggered, without criticizing, without feeling that other people are out there to hurt, and hurt people, as we say, right? So how to remove the hurt. And Amaroo Dreamers is envisioned as this consciousness community. If it was a physical space, it's an intentional living community kind of space. So if you are an Amaroo Dreamer, which you are in a sense without needing to carry the tag, you bring in someone else because they also need the healing. And when going forward, I would like to see some of it as like you can use me as a resource in your own healing session. If you feel like you're sitting with your client and you want to add 10 minutes or 15 minutes in my presence, but you sit there too, so that you imbibe some of the healing modalities I do, or my presence. So I am adding to not just my one-to-one session, but to more people who are doing this. And so it's building onto, and then I learn from you, you learn from me. So we're creating a community of healed souls and healed hearts who are whole, who are not fearful. That's the vision. So I do not
I love that model. Yeah, that's
I
a
do not
beautiful model.
Thank you. So I do not have a lot of strong opinions and ideas about how my name needs to be associated. I want Amaroo Dreamers to grow, like bring in more people. And if you are a healer yourself, use XYZ modalities. Maybe you are a coach, maybe not a healer. You are more coach who use more psychological concepts, and you feel a psychotherapist maybe, and you feel like there is a need for 2% of my clients to receive energetic because they're ready, or they're have something nagging, they can't quite name it. So you want to bring in more healers, work with me. It doesn't have to be my brand, my name or something. The idea for me at the end of it is to be where people feel whole, like all the parts within them, where they can show up, think, and then they can breathe free at night, not the pins and needles that I carried for a long time at the somatic level, at the psychological level, at the emotional level. And so all models of what I mentioned, and some of these are evolving visions, so you'll see more clarity as I post, as I talk more, as I show up more in presencing like that. But for now, LinkedIn contains Facebook. Also, I have a page. So I take bookings through when someone reaches out through the email. I do have a calendar to schedule. I give a 30 minutes free consultation before people can decide.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a weekly, I do not see the value much in just one session, unless you are like a super evolved healer yourself and looking just for an energetic spruce up, then you know what you're looking for. But most people, when they're trying to heal through their patterns and their shadow work and all these deep things, it happens over time and it needs multiple weeks. So I offer these 16. This has come through my own experimentation of working with clients. So 60 powerful transformations some people have gone through, most clients have gone through. So to make that investment in yourself with me, and both monetary time and faith and resonance level, 30 minutes is the free consultation is where we establish that there is a resonance and this is what you need, and coming back. So I do that. All that information is there on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And we'll be sure to add all of these details in the description of the video. And for everybody listening to audio only as podcast, we'll be sure to have the contact information available in the description of this beautiful episode. So we'll get those details out and keep them updated. And I am confident people will come to you as they're drawn to continue the conversation and to have a more customized conversation and healing sessions with you. And I can certainly witness from my own experience just the power and depth and divine embrace and ability to really both experience channeling and releasing. And I remember our beautiful Kali Ma session and the dance and amazing Indian food for grounding, and just that was so so wonderful to have a physical, actual physical connection in being in the same space to have this exchange, and also remotely connecting for healing, which is what the world really needs, even more so now than before, not only because of the pandemic, but because we've expanded this remote life. It's not only the pandemic, it's everybody's just, a lot of people are just, where they are and connecting remotely with other people in the world for all facets of their life, and increasingly for reclaiming their life as their own, including following and empowering themselves in their soul journey. So this is where we're at, and Ishaani is here with us today, and I'm so grateful for your beautiful presence and your beautiful energy and the medicine and sweetness of just you. Thank you so much for this conversation today, and anything else to end as we wrap this up for today.
Thank you. I just breathed in all the beauty that you are creating as you said that. And you said something important, and I offer this to you and whoever else might just be in similar positions. I am physically in the DMV area, which I'm in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. So I am happy to share physical presence if you do have space, if you're creating a circle, if you're working with groups and you want to you'll be happy for me to join. I will make myself available, and I'm most joyous to do that. It doesn't have to be me. Like, I don't believe in that I need to call for it and hence, it is mine. No, if it is your circle, you feel my energy is resonating and it'll resonate with who is part of your group. You want to invite me over, because physical presence does have a very beautiful, profound, energetic
Oh
resonance.
yeah.
Of course, with the pandemic, we kind of got a little different, and also my own personal living arrangements, and this doesn't allow me to have a lot of people over in where I am for now, but things evolve and change. But even in this part of transition, I offer myself to you. If you try to create that exclusive sessions with me, hour long or more with groups, we can talk about the details. But if there are others who wants to do that and share space, I am about the power of group energy in the right frequency, because more of us, as you said, the consciousness is expanding, transitioning. So people who are not doing it consciously are feeling the brunt of being thrown around the walls and against the walls and involuntary. So the more of us can get out with the ones who have already walked these paths, the more we can be of service, more powerfully together with the service. Like bringing a lot of small cables together to create more bigger, powerful cables. So I'm all for it. That's what I am. And for your very beautiful, serene, I always find that serenity with you. You like the real feminine energy embodiment, in the sense of like you just create beauty with the mandalas that you post, the altar at the back, and just by looking at you, I can just soften down and say it's beauty.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to receive that, and happy to receive just the magic of working together like today. And I do feel some beautiful possibilities bubbling up as we think about spring. And thank you so much as we close this circle for today. Thank you everybody for being with us today and for watching. And if you're listening, for listening to Ishaani Geetam and tainomadica here for another episode of Goddess Embodied. And be sure to stay in touch with Ishaani. We'll have all of the contact information listed below. And she's already shared a lot about the wonderful service of her divine group called Amaroo Dreamers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love, love, love.